Angelos.
Here.
Representative Haroldson.
Excused?
Representative Pendergraft.
Here.
Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Chairman Bear.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, we are in the midst of public comment for Senate File 101. And I think the next up, we had someone yesterday that's not on this list. Oh, here it is. Miss Loretta Callis. Can we try to bring,
Loretta
Loretta
Ellis
Ellis.
is not online.
okay. And then we'll go to Sheriff Hodge.
Okay.
And is there anyone in the room that would like to testify this morning? Okay, we'll knock these out and work this bill.
Sheriff Hodge, if you'll accept the promotion as a panelist.
Is there
Mr.
anyone else that we can promote?
John Grossnickel is on here.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay. Mr. Grossnickel?
Here.
Here we go.
Welcome to House Appropriations Committee, Mr. Grossnickel. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the committee and to the public, we'd appreciate it. And then tell us your thoughts on Senate File 101.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Are you getting feedback?
Yes, we are. If you could turn your volume down on your sound, it might help.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I can't hear you without the feedback.
Okay. Are you running the YouTube at the same time? Maybe that's the issue.
Is that any better? No.
Nope. And do you have Sheriff Hodge on as well?
I have tried to promote him a few times and he's not accepting or,
Okay.
oh, we got it fixed. We'll try it again.
Is that any better? Nope.
Nope, still reverberating.
I still think we're getting. I apologize. Let me continue to try.
Okay, we'll go ahead and promote Sheriff Hodge.
Let's see. Sheriff Hodge, can you accept, you should get a pop-up if you'll accept that. How about Travis Koltiska? You
Yep,
could try
let's go ahead
him.
and try to promote him.
Okay. There we go.
Welcome to House Appropriations Committee. Mr. Kalitzka, if you could please introduce yourself to the committee and to the public, we'd appreciate it, and just give us your thoughts on Senate File 101.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Thankfully, I didn't have technical difficulties as well. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. Thank you for hearing me again. I did speak to you all 2 weeks ago on this similar topic, and I won't reiterate everything I said. I just wanted to provide some potential clarification on one specific comment that was made. The facts and circumstances surrounding what I spoke about last time involved a prosecution of a federal crime for the prohibition for a individual to provide a prohibited person with a firearm, aka a straw purchase. It was said as part of this that this bill would not prohibit the investigation into gun crimes pertaining to the crime that occurred surrounding the death of my officer. However, in this situation, there is no comparable state crime that would have fit. The only charge that would have fit to hold that individual accountable is a federal firearms law against providing prohibited individuals with firearms. I would just want to reiterate that there would have been no justice. There would be no justice for that individual if this bill goes forward as written. And we're simply wanting law enforcement community to have all the tools in our power to provide safety and accountability for individuals who knowingly violate laws such as this. I won't rehash any other details. I do appreciate the conversations I've had with some of you and appreciate your time today. And I would stand for any questions if any of you have any.
Any questions for the chief? Chief, could you just clarify this? The issue you were sharing with us had to do with a straw purchase. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, it did have to do with it was providing a prohibited person with a firearm, which is also known as a straw purchase.
Okay.
Excuse me, they can be some minor differentiation depending on the circumstances and how that transaction takes place. That was what the ultimate charge was in this situation, but there's no comparable state crime to that.
And Chief, do you think there should be a comparable state crime?
Mr. Chair, it would allow local law enforcement powers within the state judicial system to do that, but it's covered currently under federal law. It may be a redundant, in the name of redundancy. I don't know if it's necessary under our current system. It has seemed to have worked so far.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time and your opining on this particular bill. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Anyone else that you can promote?
Okay, Jeff Hodge, we'll try him again.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Hodge, if you could turn on your video and unmute yourself. There we go.
Oh, almost.
So close. Oh.
Love technology.
How's that?
That looks great. Thank you for joining us, Sheriff.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. Was having. It's early in the morning. I hope we're all doing better than that, huh? Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Jeff Hodge, Sheriff of Crook County. I'm also the president of the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. I'm here representing law enforcement leadership across Wyoming. Starting off here, I want to fill in some gaps from yesterday. I think it would do us well to maybe fill those gaps and have a better understanding and maybe clarification of the testimony that was given yesterday. The first part is reference the incident that happened in Sheridan County. According to testimony before this committee, both from a member and from an advocate, a federally convicted methamphetamine offender had his rights restored erroneously. At the time, there was an ongoing federal investigation and a concurrent drug investigation by local law enforcement agencies. Known drug users were frequency the subject's resident, which was located near a school, and individuals admitted to using methamphetamines with the subject. During the execution of the search warrant at the residence, methamphetamine was found inside a safe, along with a handgun, and along with other controlled substances in the residence. The subject was he pled guilty and was convicted of possession of methamphetamines. The search warrant was signed by a judge. It was based on probable cause, but it was not a raid. If this is the example being offered for justification for this legislation, then we are even more concerned. We understood this bill to be related to federal firearms enforcement. Instead, it appears to create a pathway for convicted criminals to pursue litigation against Wyoming law enforcement. When legislation creates pathways for individuals who have pled guilty and have been convicted of methamphetamine offenses while actively violating Wyoming law to pursue claims against Wyoming law enforcement officers for carrying out lawful investigations, that is a serious and troubling policy. And the sheriffs of Wyoming are not going to support that choice. Since 2022, the SAPA law was enacted, and when it was a law I personally worked on with members of this body and representatives from gun lobbyist groups, there have been no operational conflicts, no corrective litigation, and no demonstrated breakdown of enforcement in Wyoming. The existing SAPA 2022 has not been used against a single Wyoming officer or agency, and there's no operational crisis, no pattern of constitutional abuse, and no systematic enforcement failure in Wyoming. All 23 sheriffs in this state, representing over 500 years of combined experience, signed a letter to each of you opposing this bill. That level of unanimous, independent opposal from the elected sheriffs, this is not about politics. This is about professional judgment. The bill before you today is being promoted by out-of-state gun lobbyists. Their organization advancing their own agenda, and this is out-of-state influence shaping Wyoming law. Each year, I think for approximately 5 years, it's been quite some time, every year these same lobbyists, out-of-state gun lobbyist groups, return with new gun bills. The language expands, the penalties grow, and the provisions escalate. These out-of-state gun lobbyists, the organizations, they're built around legislative activism, and they require continual legal or legislative conflict. They need that to survive. New bills create urgency. Urgency generates fundraising. Fundraising perpetuates the cycle. We've also heard concerns that under different presidential administrations, federal authorities are going to come into Wyoming and use local law enforcement to confiscate firearms from citizens. Wyoming law enforcement, they have never participated in any of those unconstitutional conducts. and they never will. We take an oath to the Constitution of the United States and also to the Constitution of Wyoming. But we do not take an oath to administrations. You know, that there are already federal and state laws to address violation of civil rights. And we encourage citizens, if their rights have been violated, to pursue that through the courts and hold officers accountable if those occurrences occur, but they're not happening. Legislative-based hypothetical on future administration is just not a pathway and not a sound basis for rewriting state law. At some point, is it reasonable for us to ask, is there a demonstrated operational problem in Wyoming? Why are we rewriting the statute and escalating it if it's not? I think that's a valid question. I think we should all ask that. The out-of-state gun lobbyist organizations claim to represent tens of thousands of Wyoming members. If that claim is being used to influence Wyoming law and Wyoming statute, it needs to be transparent and clearly defined. Are these Wyoming residents? Are they due-paying members? Are they email lists and petition signers? That distinction matters. Law enforcement representatives were asked yesterday during testimony whether we can rely on federal prosecutors to exercise discretion in these situations. I think we need to clarify that. Prosecutorial discretion should not be used in drafting bills and laws. Officers deserve clear law before they act. They should not have to depend on hope after the fact. You know, this is a bad bill. It has been testified as such by those who would be responsible for enforcing it. It seems like every year, and you guys have expressed your frustrations, but the frustrations, we have frustrations also. We come back year after year after year with these gun lobbyist bills, and it's new committees, and it's new people, but it's us. And it's us every time down in the Capitol testifying against some of these bills. A lot of the bills we fully support, and we fully support constitutional rights to Second Amendments. But when these bills are anti-law enforcement and more pro-criminal, we have issues with that. When professionals tasked with carrying out the law are unified in warning you guys that the law is flawed, that should matter. These gun laws, they should be clear, they should be necessary, and they should be written by Wyoming and for Wyoming, not for out-of-state gun lobbyists. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Sheriff. Appreciate your comments. I'm curious, you mentioned many times out-of-state gun lobbyists. Specifically, who are you talking about?
Mr. Chair?
Sheriff? Go ahead, Sheriff.
Well, I can name them, no problem, but under decorum, is that proper?
We'll avoid the question, Sheriff. Did you have a
We-
follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. We do have a couple of different lobbyists that came and testified on this. One of them is and has been for some time a resident of Wyoming. I would contest your statement that this is an out-of-state gun lobbyist. I completely disagree. I just wanted to get that out there for the record.
Okay.
Mr.
Other
Chair, may
comments?
I respond?
You may, Sheriff. Go ahead.
Just because you change your address and move to Wyoming, you're still representing outside lobbyist groups and their agendas.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Sheriff, we appreciate your being here. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Ms. Childress, do we have anyone else that we can promote online? Okay, and is there anyone else in the room that's come in the room that would like to testify? Okay. Okay. You want to testify? I just want to know if you want to testify. You testified yesterday and so did Representative Worf. So give me a minute to think about that. Let's hear this one here.
Is this any better, Mr. Chairman?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize for that. I had two browsers open. My name is John Grosnickle. I'm the elected sheriff of Sweetwater County, Wyoming. I just want to touch on a couple things that were testified yesterday, and Sheriff Hodge kind of brushed up on those also today. This bill is concerning in many ways, and I agree with the testimony of Wascop and the other law enforcement that's testified before the committee. More importantly to me, this bill takes away our ability to cooperate with our federal partners. And why that's important is because we've built relationships over decades to be able to work with our federal partners. And what that does is brings about local control when our federal law enforcement partners come into our communities. There's testimony that this bill does not stop federal law enforcement coming into our communities, which we know the state cannot do. But I will give you a real world example, a recent one, where there was no local cooperation with federal partners. And in turn, the communities of a Midwestern state towards the north saw the ramifications of that. Had there been local control, the ability to come together and say, this might not work in our community, this might work in our community, we wouldn't have seen the issues that Border Patrol and ICE had in that northern cold state up there that allows feminine hygiene products in male bathrooms. As a lifelong resident of the state of Wyoming and a law enforcement officer that has put in over 3 decades in Sweetwater County, I don't want to see our communities have those issues, and it saddens me that a piece of legislation could lead our state down that path. That's all for my testimony. I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Grosnickle? Chief Grosnickle? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ms. Childress.
Mr. Chairman, Loretta Callis is
Okay.
on now and would like to testify.
Okay, you can go ahead and promote her. I'm going to allow the co-sponsor of the bill, or he's not actually named on it, but the presenter of the bill to have one more bite at the apple, but that's going to be the close of testimony. So we'll go ahead and promote Ms. Callis.
And while we're waiting for Miss Callis real quick, Aaron Dorr did raise his hand. He
I
did
understand.
testify yesterday, so I don't know.
Right, I understand. We're
Okay.
just going to go back to the bringer and then we'll close testimony. All right, welcome to House Appropriations Committee. Please introduce
morning,
yourself to the
Chairman Bear.
committee. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Bear. My name is Loretta Howison-Callis. I'm the Uinta County and Prosecuting Attorney, but more pertinently, I am the president of the Wyoming County and Prosecuting Attorneys Association. And my apologies, due to schedules, we haven't been able to appear in relation to your hearings, but I am happy to appear this morning. I did want to note for the committee that the Wyoming County and Prosecuting Attorneys Association has taken a position related to the amendments to the Second Amendment Protection Act for the state of Wyoming, and we are opposed to these amendments and in support of our sheriffs and municipal police departments, as well as other law enforcement officers. Specifically, I would note that the state of Wyoming you all have enacted one of the strongest Second Amendment Protection Acts in the country. We are proud of that bill, and we have certainly been aware of that bill being provided. However, I am not aware of a single incident in which we have had to utilize that bill or a citizen has had concern. In addition, because I know you're in a hurry, I'll just note I have been trying to catch up and watch testimony. And one of the defenses or concerns that have been provided to alleviate concerns about use of this matter, essentially incidentally, when an offense occurs and there is a firearm involved, is that the individual is a criminal for possessing a firearm or otherwise prohibited. I am sure that you all are aware, but there are several provisions of the federal statute 922G. And one of those provisions is that a person who has been previously committed to a mental institution is not permitted to have a firearm. I am confident you all can understand why that would be a provision due to the risks and concerns related to possession of a firearm for a known mentally ill person. But that person would not be an unlawful holder under Wyoming law because they have not necessarily committed any offense. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. Stand in support of our sheriffs and our municipal police departments and stand for any questions you may have of our association.
Any questions for Ms. Callis? Ms. Callis, we appreciate you being here. I do have one question. You know, you brought up the known mentally ill person. Is it your opinion that the state should have laws that that take those persons that haven't committed a crime with a weapon and prohibit their ownership of a weapon or possession of a weapon?
An example I would provide you, Chairman Bear, is actually a real life experience that we had here in Evanston. It was several years ago. And in relation to that individual, he was in a state of depression and was on his back porch. And because of the noise related to his stereo and other issues, law enforcement were called for a noise violation. In the interaction with law enforcement attempting to make contact with that individual, he expelled his weapon 2 times at officers. And but for the grace of God, those bullets actually went in between the 3 officers that were present. Those officers were able to secure him without using deadly force. He was prosecuted for aggravated assault in relation to firing at those law enforcement officers. And a duly impaneled jury did acquit him of those offenses for reasons that certainly are their own. That being stated, in the months later, 3 to 6 months later, I have to apologize because this was in 2017 or 2018. That same individual was found to have multiple firearms in his possession and had made a threat to utilize those firearms against a VA. And so in relation to that, then, because of the hospitalization that had occurred during his prosecution in Wyoming, the federal government was able to call him a prohibited person and likely help prevent a very serious offense. And so I would note that I have personal experience with having concerns with mentally ill people who should be prohibited having firearms. And there is not a database or other recording instrument that provides for that. So for the citizens of the state of Wyoming, I do believe that it is appropriate under certain circumstances to have regulations for mentally ill with firearms. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Any further questions for Ms. Callis? Seeing none, we really do appreciate you coming here and sharing your thoughts on this particular bill.
Have a great morning. Thank you, Your Honor,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Representative Wharf, you can come forward, and we had a couple other representatives come in the room. I don't know if they're still here. Representative Geringer, did you want to opine on this bill? Okay. All right. Representative Wharf, thank you for coming back today. I'll let you close out the public comment here, so you get the last word.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things that I took notes to try to address some of the things that have been said. I guess one of the most glaring things is the accusation that there's a lobbyist that's lobbying from outside our state. I happen to be a member of Wyoming Gun Owners. I've been a member of Wyoming Gun Owners, and I've partnered with them for well over 10, 15 years. So I want that to be acknowledged. I can't express how offensive it is to me that there's allegations being lobbed at me that I'm anti-law enforcement. I do not see this SAPA bill as being anti-law enforcement. What I see this doing, it's also been brought up, we haven't had to use any of these laws, and I just say yet. We all know that it's happened in other countries, and we see the tides changing, and it's scary times. So I guess the question I have for this body is, do we wait for the federal order to seize firearms before we protect the citizens of this state, or do we be proactive and we say we can't preempt federal laws, but one thing we can tell them is if you're coming to our state to seize firearms, you better come with enough law enforcement to do that, because we're not going to put our friends, the members that we have that are in our community, we're not going to put their lives at risk to go carry out an order that we don't believe is legal. That's what this is about. And we hear all kinds of supposition. Every story that's been presented has started with a crime. And that's the whole point. The purpose of this, it's very expressly stated. This is just to deal with solely actions dealing with firearms, ammunition, or accessories. Every incident that's been brought up, the law enforcement entity was engaged with somebody for an illegal act. And when I was in law enforcement, we filled out a report. My shift, I always had to fill out a report and tell all the actions that took place that day. And to me, we're making a mountain out of a molehill, because I'm assuming that we do the same thing here in Wyoming. I was an officer in Utah, but it seems to me that if you put in your report that the initial contact was because you had a complaint, you had somebody that was unstable, or you had somebody that had robbed a bank in another state and was fleeing their law enforcement, came into our state, and we picked them up. All those reports should indicate what led to the action, what led to the interaction between the law enforcement entity and the citizen. And to me, we're making a mountain out of a molehill. All this bill does, and it's been mentioned that we have SAPA bill already on statute, which we have. The one thing that we don't have is we don't have the ability to take civil actions against the county or the state should they violate our constitutional rights. And when some of you may remember, when we had two versions of SAPA, and one of them passed, one of them didn't. One of the arguments that we had, and I think it was exemplified today, we have the County Attorney Association saying that they're in opposition to this bill. And to me, it highlights the problem. We cannot count on a county prosecutor to take action against our county sheriff or our police chiefs. They're just not going to do it. It's not something that will happen. And so, yeah, we can pursue the criminal action, but if we can't convince our county attorney to take action against that entity, what are our options? And that's what this amendment does. This amendment just strengthens our SAPA bill. We have a good SAPA bill, and I'm glad we haven't had to use it yet. But I do think the question needs to be answered. Do we wait until an order is given to seize our firearms, to pass legislation that protects Wyoming citizens and their Second Amendment? So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if you have an amendment, you want me to
No, we'll deal with that here.
Okay,
If
if
there are
you-
amendments, we'll do
Yep.
that as a
and
body.
if you
but
need me to provide explanation for ours, I would be more than happy to, Mr. Chairman,
if-
at that
If we
time.
do, we'll call you up.
Okay.
Are there any questions for the bringer? Representative Warp, I have to address your comments about the prosecutors. Now, as I see it, the prosecutors are elected by the same people that elect us. And so it really comes down to the people and them electing the right people to defend their constitutional rights. So if they've elected you and they elected me, and we have those desires to protect those constitutional rights, we should assume that those prosecutors are going to do the same thing. Don't you agree?
And Mr. Chairman, I do agree, but it's alarming to me, and I just challenge you. You tell me one time that we've had a county attorney take action against a fellow county or city resident. Because I know of 3 incidents when they've refused to assist because they've said, literally, I can't do that because I have to work with them. And that's concerning to me if we have that. And that's a topic for a different day, but I can tell you, I do respect, I mean, I know my county sheriff, I know my county attorney that spoke against the bill, and I can just tell you that it highlights a problem with just having the criminal component. That's why we need to add a civil component, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much. All right, we're going to close public comment on Senate File 101. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Pendergraph, second by Allemand. Any overarching discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and start page by page through the bill. This is Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments, -3, page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you. On page 3, line 19, my motion would be to maintain the phrase unconstitutional.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, that fails for a lack of a second. Any others on page 3? Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Representative Pendergraph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that on page 6, line 19 through page 7, line 2, we delete the entire subsection and reinsert Romanet 2. An interested party may bring civil action to enforce the provisions of this subsection. And I do have this written down, obviously. A court of competent jurisdiction may order injunctive or other equitable relief, recovery of damages, or other legal remedies permitted by law, and payment of reasonable attorney fees. Sovereign immunity shall not be an affirmative defense in any action brought under this subsection. And then on page 4, line 4, delete, an interested party may bring civil action to enforce the provisions of this section.
Did you say page 4? I don't think you meant.
Page 7, line 4.
This would strike.
Yeah, strike, an interested party may bring civil action and enforce the provision. I think it flows better to put that paragraph. Thank you.
So we remain labeled paragraph E on line 4. Strike the language through line 5. The word section is the last stricken word.
So on page 4, up through line 2 is struck in the
I'm
first
sorry,
part.
please get the page number. It's page 4.
Lines, page 7, lines 1 and 2 are struck. And then on the same page, page 7, line 4, delete the first words, an interested party may bring civil action to enforce the provisions of this section. That first sentence.
Is that clear? Representative Smith. It's already been seconded by Representative Alman. Oh, I'm sorry. It has not. That was to move the bill. So seconded by Smith. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Rep. Pendergraft's motion to amend page 6 and page 7, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Okay, any others on page 6 or 7? Page 8. Page 9. And page 10. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Ms. Childers, we're ready to take roll, please.
Roll call vote, Senate File 101 engross do pass as amended. Representative Allemand. Aye. Representative Angelos.
Aye.
Representative Haroldson left absentee vote of aye. Representative Pendergraft.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
No.
Representative Smith.
Aye.
Chairman Bear.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 6 aye, 1 no.
Okay, that bill is dispatched. We'll now move on to our re-referrals.
And Mr. Chairman, will Representative Wharf present on the floor?
Yes, he will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Senate File 50. State Engineer Surface and Groundwater Study. Welcome, Representative Geringer, House Appropriations Committee. Please introduce the bill. We'd really like to focus on the fiscal matters on this bill, but if you'd like to give a real brief explanation of what you're trying to accomplish here, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob Geringer, serving Southwest Laramie County. I'll just give a brief overview of the bill. It requires a new study every 10 years in groundwater control areas, and there are 3 of those designated across the state right now. Control areas are areas where the use of underground water is approaching a use that's equal to or current with the recharge rate, or where groundwater levels are declining or have declined excessively, and maybe where conflicts between users are occurring or foreseeable. This is particularly the case. We've got one of those control areas in Laramie County, covering nearly half the eastern part of the county. And the original study was done over a decade ago. Lots of additional uses have occurred between housing developments, agriculture developments, industrial, and the like. We also know that the recharge of the aquifer may or may not be keeping up. And so the importance of having this kind of a study is to see what effects all of these uses have had, and to compare against what might be occurring in the future. And so this particular study would cost $500,000. That is the ask with this bill. And it can be with 3 different control areas right now. It wouldn't cover all of the areas at this point in time, but it would start with the first one. And then in the future, there would be an ask for an additional appropriation for additional studies to occur. I hope I've covered briefly enough what we're looking at here, and I stand for any questions.
I believe so. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you. Good morning. Question about the appropriation. Did you guys discuss pros and cons of having this come out of Water One versus general funds?
Mr. Chair, through you, Representative Sherwood, I was not part of any discussions that did discuss that, no.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here, Representative. Question, you said there's 3 control areas. What areas are those?
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Angelos, that would be Laramie County as I identified. There's also Platte County around Wheatland, and then the Prairie Center control area, which is northern Goshen and southern Niobrara counties.
And I assume that this begins in the Laramie. Call it the Laramie one for this particular study.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that was the one that was identified to be on top of the list, yes.
Okay. And are there any large scale projects that are proposed in this area?
Mr. Chairman, yes, there's lots of different projects that are proposed in the area, from housing developments to oil and gas uses to industrial such as data centers. Typically what we're seeing with the data center uses, I would say that those are in aquifers deeper than where the controls are placed. And so really it's more about residential versus ag versus oil and gas.
Okay. Any further questions for the bringer? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on this bill? All right, seeing none, anyone online? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure? Move to pass, seconded by Sherwood, seconded by Smith. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on the bill.
Roll call vote, Senate File 50 engrossed do pass. Representative Allemand? Aye. Representative Angelos? No. Representative Harrelson left an absentee vote of aye. Representative Pendergraft?
Aye.
Representative Sherwood?
Aye.
Representative Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Bear?
No.
Mr. Chairman, 5 aye, 2 no.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move forward on the next bill, Senate File 69. Waste and Stormwater Infrastructure Study, sponsored by Select Water Committee. Do we have anyone here for this bill? Please come forward. Welcome to House Appropriations Committee. How are you today? Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jennifer Zigmant. I am the Water Quality Administrator with the Wyoming DEQ. I'd be happy to provide an overview of the bill or just answer questions.
Please
however.
do. That will help us.
So, Mr. Chairman, what this bill would do is provide funding to allow the DEQ to work with our partner agencies to develop a comprehensive database of the water and wastewater infrastructure that we have in Wyoming. Currently, we don't have that in the state, and particularly our small communities are challenged with knowing what pipes, tanks, valves they have in order to provide safe drinking water to the communities and to effectively treat wastewater. So what the DEQ is currently doing, we are underway with a pilot project to do this effort for 6 communities within Wyoming. We have federal funding to do this effort for drinking water infrastructure. What we don't have is funding to do the wastewater and stormwater side of it. So what this would do is fill the funding gap and allow us to hire a contractor to do that study for all of our communities to do drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater at the same time, which would be significantly more cost effective to do 1 round around the state rather than 3. So what we are doing with these studies is to develop what's called an asset management plan for each community. And we are using an online-based platform, and this would allow each community to have a plan that they can update over time. It's dynamic. It's GIS based, so they can map their infrastructure and see it. Each community can see their infrastructure. The state agencies would be able to see the picture of what we have in the state, identify critical assets, help avoid emergencies, and make sure that we're maintaining that infrastructure over time so that we don't have emergencies. Again, this system is a great approach because we're not putting paper reports on the shelf. They don't become out of date. What the communities are contributing is their time and resources to put information into the system, update it over time. The subscription to the system over time would be paid for with federal funds. We have access to administrative funds under the Drinking Water SRF to pay for subscriptions for this service over time. So again, the communities are contributing their time and resources toward this effort, but we'd be paying for the initial plan and the subscription over time. So again, we have funding to do this for drinking water. We're already embarking down that effort. We're just looking for funding to do wastewater and stormwater at the same time. Mr. Chairman, I'll stop there, but happy to take any
Okay,
questions.
any questions? The department. Representative Sherwood.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to say thank you for the proactive approach. I know this is something that a lot of our communities are struggling with, so thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I guess, when was the last time we conducted such a study?
Mr. Chairman, to my knowledge, we never have.
Never have.
We have conducted these asset management plans for drinking water communities as needed over time, or I should say the communities have developed asset management plans for their infrastructure over time. But they've been of different quality, they've been of different scale, they quickly become outdated. Again, particularly in our small towns, I'm sure this committee knows that, you know, the local elected officials wear many hats. And that information is hard to keep up to date. They just don't have the resources to do that. So it's information that easily gets lost, and then we don't know where the pipes are. We don't know what's about to fail. So there's been asset management planning done in different ways over the years, but we've never done a comprehensive approach where we have all of the systems on the same platform to the same standard.
Sounds like a monumental task. So on the funding sources, that right now this is slotted to come out of our strategic investments and projects account, which there are several bills that are working on eliminating that account. Curious how that determination was come to, and if there's an alternative plan from the agency.
Mr. Chairman, you are correct that SIPA was identified in the original bill. I can't speak to why that account was chosen originally, but there is an amendment to propose that if funds weren't available under SIPA, the funds would come from the general funds. So that amendment would allow the flexibility depending on what counts have funding available.
Okay, and you had mentioned potential federal funding for this in the future. Can you give us a little bit more description about that? And have you been working with the Grants Management Office to this point? When do you expect those federal funds become available?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. So again, the funding that we have to do the drinking water study comes from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Those are federal funds. We receive an annual capitalization grant every year. And within that capitalization grant, there's administrative funds that we can use in coordination with the Office of State Lands and Investments for studies such as these. So that's how we will be funding the drinking water infrastructure study. And that's the fund that we would use to pay for subscription costs over time for our communities to access this system.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, yes, we do regularly touch base with the Grants Management Office about grant opportunities.
So other than the drinking water capitalization account, are there anticipated funds for the wastewater and the stormwater as well?
Mr. Chairman, that is where we have not been able to identify another funding source for the wastewater and stormwater aspect. A lot of the federal funding opportunities that we have are honestly focused on drinking water. That seems to be the priority. There are a lot fewer funding sources to handle wastewater, the sewage component, the clean water side of things. So we have thoroughly vetted with EPA whether we could use those federal funds for the wastewater side. Their answer has been clearly no, we cannot.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Allemand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Do you anticipate that you're going to find a problem, or is this just 100% proactive?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Another great question. I do think we will identify quite a few assets within the state that are in critical condition. A lot of the pipes that were put in for water and wastewater systems are probably past their life expectancy. A lot of the wastewater treatment plants and drinking water plants within Wyoming are still pretty much the original version that was built decades ago. So I think we will identify a universe of assets that are in critical condition that we need to fix. But the benefit is also proactive in that this system, again, will allow people to see what they have in the community. It will allow them to look at the condition of those assets, and then furthermore, to allow them to look at different financial scenarios. If your town's budget is this, here's what you're going to be able to do for your water and wastewater infrastructure assets. So It'll allow them to map out different financial scenarios and I think allow our local elected officials to better understand what resources they have available, whether or not that's enough to handle their infrastructure to maintain it over time, to plan for growth if that community is expecting growth. So I think it'll be valuable proactively from that angle as well. And then again, as a state, the state agencies will be able to see a dashboard for the entire state so we can work with those communities to better plan solutions that will be sustainable in the long term.
Further questions? Representative Allen.
Thank you, sir. So where most of the study and the testing will be done is at the end use or the water faucet, not coming into the water treatment plant. That's what I was understanding. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
to answer that question, so the community can use this tool to look at any detail of assets. So the pipes that they have, the storage tanks, the valves. What it probably won't get into is the on-premise plumbing, meaning anything that's in somebody's residence would not be in the system. It would just be assets managed by the town. So basically everything up to the lateral going into a house, that's what we would map. We would not be mapping on-premise infrastructure.
Thank you. Representative Pendergrass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. In my hometown of Sheridan, recently had a lot of interaction with the city on basic water lines. They've got a lot of lead supply lines and other things that are there, but they know where that stuff is. They've got it all down on their GIS. Are there cities that don't know that? Is this study to link all of those together into one big map? Maybe just a little clarity, just for my own sake.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, so there are some communities that do have some or all of this information put together. And if they have that information put together, it's going to be easily transferable into the system that we're envisioning under this project. So they're just steps ahead. But absolutely, we do have some communities that have very little to no information about their infrastructure, and they certainly don't have it in a GIS-based platform. This pilot project that we did with 6 communities, we tried to get a range of those communities, very small communities up to larger communities. Sheridan was one of them that we worked with to get some good examples of working with a city like Sheridan that has some of this information or a lot of this information to communities that don't. This will build off work that's already been done by the Water Development Office through level 1 and level 2 studies, systems that have that kind of information. Again, it's just going to put them ahead of the curve in terms of filling out this information for this study.
Follow. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you. I think, thanks for being, again, good morning. Same question I asked earlier, were there conversations about whether this should come out of a water development account?
Please.
Mr. Chairman, we looked at all available funding sources. I would have to let the Water Development Office speak specifically to their funding sources. However, because this does get into some Safe Drinking Water Act requirements, some Clean Water Act requirements, I don't know that the Water Development Office funding would be appropriate for this. So that's the extent that I think I can respond to that question.
Could you repeat that one more time for me, please?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. Again, the federal funding that we're using from the Drinking Water SRF is appropriate because it ties into Safe Drinking Water Act requirements. This infrastructure study will also help with other aspects of Safe Drinking Water Act programs and Clean Water Act programs that I don't think Water Development Office typically interacts with. Therefore, I don't know that their funding would be appropriate to help with some kind of study like this. I think it goes beyond their scope, but I would have to defer to Director Mead for more information about their funding sources.
Okay.
But again, the work that they've done under their level 1 and 2 studies, we can build upon that work to help populate the study we're envisioning here.
Okay. Further questions? I have a question. So we have drinking water here taken care of by federal funds. Now we have stormwater and wastewater. Is there a way to bifurcate that if we're not able to fund everything at once?
Mr. Chairman, sure. Just to let you know the numbers, so the drinking water infrastructure study based on the pilot we did, we're estimating at $8 million. And again, that will be handled through the federal funding through the drinking water SRF.
Mhm.
The estimates for the wastewater component, again, this would be sewage. This was $6 million. So $6 million to handle the sanitary sewage infrastructure that we have in the state. And then $2 million estimated to handle the stormwater. DEQ was not originally proposing to do the stormwater side of things. When we presented to the Select Water Committee, there was interest from members there in adding stormwater in. Again, it would be more cost effective for us to do this all together, but that's the breakdown. 8 million for drinking water, 6 million for wastewater, 2 million for stormwater.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here. We appreciate your help on this bill, helping us to understand. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this bill? Anyone online? Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Sherwood. Seconded by Pendergraph. Discussion on the bill. Representative Pendergraph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, like you guys, get really tired of seeing study after study after study. But I will say that just over the last several months, I had several experiences in Sheridan and trying to get to the bottom. And a lot of those records were confused and inaccurate and caused a lot of wasted time, frankly, for me. And I guess I feel like this is a way of trying to remedy that and trying to get caught back up.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the roll.
Roll call vote, Senate File 69 in gross do pass. Representative Allemand?
Aye.
Representative Angelos? Representative Harrelson left an absentee vote of aye. Representative Pendergraft?
Aye.
Representative Sherwood?
Aye.
Representative Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Bear?
No.
Mr. Chairman, 6 aye, 1 no.
Go ahead and move on to Senate File 109. All right, is there anyone here for Senate File 109? All right, thank you. Please introduce yourself to the committee and welcome to House Appropriations. Yes, I would like somebody to introduce the bill. So let's get the department.
Let's do that first. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's do that.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Joe Budd, Wyoming Department of Agriculture. I have with me today Julie Cook, who's our manager of our administrative division. Would you like me to walk through this a little bit for you?
You know, we don't need to go through the entire bill, but mostly the financial portion of it, if you would please do that.
Yep,
Mr.
I can do
Budd.
that. So I guess very high level, this creates a $10 million trust that would then fund projects related to agriculture in Wyoming. And this is largely, I believe it's been called an outgrowth of the Governor's Ag Initiative, which I'm happy to inform you will be out today in final form, but that's the original kind of idea behind the bill. The $10 million, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, $10 million would essentially be seed money, and projects would be run off of the interest that's accrued. I believe the estimates on that are somewhere in the 2.5% to 3% range. There's a $200,000 cap, if you will. Anything over $200,000 that would be spent by the committee would have to have legislative approval. And then the other fiscal note is for travel and administrative support that would end up with us at the Wyoming Department of Agriculture. That's largely to cover 5 of the members that would not have travel in their budget as state or otherwise government employees. Those members are on page 7 if you'd like to look at them. But that's the very high level overview.
Okay, questions for the department? I have a question. What was the impetus to come up with a board to bring these projects and fund these projects? And have these projects, are these new projects that we've never funded before? What are we looking at as far as why this came about, genesis of this?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak too much for Senator Boner, but I believe largely the idea was that we have similar funds for other areas, and there wasn't really anything in place for agriculture in terms of recruiting new ag teachers, being able to do Wyoming specific ag research, being able to then translate that to producers on the ground and help the industry from that standpoint. So it's not purely tied to education. It would also tie to on the ground things that may help producers, and whether or not that is a study of water rights in the Bighorn Basin or anything like that that may have an impact on the industry as a whole. I believe that's the idea behind it. It's written fairly broadly. You can see that there's a list of things that the committee can consider when doing projects or looking at projects. I think that's intentional, and I think that's so the committee can have plenty of new ideas instead of just saying, you know, we should have more teachers or more research. It would be things that would directly impact the industry in a positive fashion.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Representative Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aren't most of these projects that could occur, wouldn't this be a duplication? We have the agriculture stations, we have the classrooms. Wouldn't most of this money, wouldn't it just be a duplication of a program we already have?
Mr. Budd.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Alman, I think you could argue that for certain things. I think a lot of the programs are underutilized, and having a central clearinghouse, if you will, for these things may help with some of that. It could also, we see it in other programs where you leverage the dollars that are available. So this requires a 1-to-1 match. That 1-to-1 can turn into 1-to-5 or 1-to-7. So I don't think it's entirely duplicative. This also would allow us, especially on the education front, from what I understand, it would allow for more Wyoming specific research that is not directly tied to a federal requirement. So the example that's been given is that if you want research to study, let's say a grassland system in Wyoming, and there's federal funding for that, a lot of times they will require a climate change component. Well, if we want to do grassland research in the Thunder Basin and it doesn't have anything to do with that, you're not going to get the federal dollars unless you include that in the study, which then somewhat negates the purpose of the study and the locality of it. So I would say no in general.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you. I think to that end, I like the idea of this clearinghouse concept. If you had a crystal ball and you could look into the future, do you feel like ag in the classroom would also maybe fall under this and maybe funded from this moving forward?
Mr. Budd.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherwood, they're in there. Andrew Juanitas is here, I believe, to speak to some of that today, but I think that could be a component. Again, that would come down to that committee and what they choose as priorities. So I think, I wouldn't say no, I think it could happen, but that committee would be the one that would decide.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you stepping up and sharing your thoughts on the bill, your explanation. Welcome to House Appropriations.
Chairman, committee, my name is Andrew Juanitas, Executive Director of Wyoming Agriculture in the Classroom, and also a member of this Cowboy State Agriculture Initiative. And Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherwood, for Ag in the Classroom specific funding, it is my understanding, and obviously the committee would have that grand opportunity to decide upon a request, as everybody would have to submit a request to this committee for funding and I believe that committee would design a threshold for funding requests and what that algorithm would look like. But as Executive Director of Wyoming Ag in the Classroom, we are not looking at this as an additional funding source. My role on the committee was to help with everybody understand K through 12 and really especially elementary education and where that stands with ag and natural resource education. In my mind, in a perfect world, we would be able to create an awesome honor system to exemplify and expand ag and natural resource education through the K through 12 system. What that looks like right now, I don't know. But the belief is to help school districts, schools, and such around the state to increase their usage. It would not be a pay-for-play system, but it would be a way to exemplify and create other opportunities. Thank you.
Further questions? All right. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your input. All right. We'll start with you. You got to the chair first, so. And if there's anyone else that wants to testify on this bill, please come forward. And do we have anyone online? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Brad Tyndall, president of Central Wyoming College. And I've had meetings with my colleagues, so I'm representing also not just my college, but all the college presidents, the trustees of our colleges, our 56 trustees of WACT, and also, I can't speak for the commission, but they're on board with this too. And so we like this bill, and the way I kind of see it is that it's a clearinghouse or coordinating. But if you think about the interest rate of, $10 million, 3%, it's $300,000. This isn't big projects. This isn't hiring people. This isn't establishing bureaucracy. What it is a way to pull us together so we're on the same page. There are so many entities existing in ag. And my background is I have a master's in ag econ. And then we try to pursue things for Central Wyoming College. It's very diffuse. We have these great ideas, but we don't know there's so many players in this very complex field that having a group of people where the K-12 was represented, the community colleges are there, the dean of ag of UW is there. It's like you have all the people finally, I would say, at the table talking for basically seeding projects together to really make systemic changes. Because I feel like, I don't know if you're fans of the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, but that came together when it's kind of rough at first. But now, or at least we're on the same page when it comes to economic development, joint grants, projects pushing in the same direction, and things like that. The one thing that was kind of weak, I would say, within the Wyoming Innovation Partnership was the ag piece. It kind of straggled in later. And there are times, conversations with others saying, well, gee, where's the ag component? We got to be doing more. And it's largely a coordination piece. And ag is really, really important for Wyoming, obviously. And I think even the way we undercount it in our economy, I could argue that it's number 2 because the biggest expense within tourism is food, and we're pushing local food. But it's a complicated space. It requires so much coordination. And when we go in together for grants and we're pushing in the same direction, it's just a lot more efficient. I could give you tons of examples, but I'm excited about stronger linkages to K-12. And so if you think about it, someone says you have $300,000, what are you going to do? That's not a big project. You're not buying a lot of equipment. You can't hire any people. But what BASIC does is it gets us together so that we have hopefully a K through 20, kindergarten through graduate school, if you will. So we're on the same page and we're pushing in the same direction because it's just so siloed. And so we need to decide together as a group whether we're going to, have a project about drones, and drones are really impacting agriculture in a big way. So it's, fenceless systems for cattle, or there's soil, there's water, there's so many things, but we're so fractured. So I'm excited about this because I just think if we can be at the table with the dean of UW and people from K-12, and we're finally talking ag because ag really matters. It's also kind of the cement of our cultural commonality, whether it's food or other things and processing. It's so one-off right now. In our county, we have like ag meat processing. Another county's talking about it, but they don't. It's a hassle. I mean, we need to be coordinated so we can reduce the barriers across the state. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions? Representative Alleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for being here. I counted 9 directors, is that correct? What happens if the Wyoming Business Council no longer exists? What is your plan there? Because it may or may not.
President Tyndall.
I'll do my best to answer that. I can't really, if somebody who really knows more, I can shoot from the hip, but someone might get shot.
Bud?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Alman, I think that committee could probably fill that role with some other business minded entity. So we have noted that would be a potential issue. As far as 9 directors, I think there's 4 state employees or state affiliated employees and 5 that would not be, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right, further questions? All right, thank you very much for being here. All right. Please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning, Chairman Bear, members of the committee. Era Arano with Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. We represent over 14,000 family farmers across 3 states, including Wyoming. Just first, some technical reminders on the bill that ensure oversight and reporting. There is Senate confirmation of those folks. There's annual reports to the Agriculture Interim Committee, and there's legislative approval required for large projects. You've probably heard the ag economy is not in a good place right now. Inputs are up, commodity prices, except for beef, are down. Farm bankruptcy rates are up over 70%, and we are losing agricultural operations every single day. We cannot and should not rely on large multinational agribusinesses to invest in Wyoming. We need to invest in Wyoming. This bill supports past legislation. Look forward. It complements the food freedom work with value-added product potential. It is really focused on workforce development potential, which we know is a big issue. It's a unifying issue. When was the last time that you saw wildlife group, ag groups, education up at the table at the same time, supporting the same bill? And in committees, we had the conservation districts, we had quite a few other folks up here as well. Ag is the number 3 industry in our state and even higher in our heritage and culture. We do quite a bit in state funds to support our number 1 and number 2 industries. This is an investment in our future and keeping working lands working in our state. Please show your support for agriculture and please vote aye.
Okay. Any questions? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for being here. I'm just curious about any coordination with our grants management office. I'm picturing people wanting to take advantage of some of these grants. Are you coordinating with them in any way so that they can reach you, or can you fill me in?
Please.
I certainly hope so. I was not part of the planning committee that worked on the background of this bill, and I would happily defer to the 2 folks in the room, or maybe 3 folks in the room who were.
Okay. Follow? All right. Any further questions? Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you. Mr. McGagnon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim McGagnon with the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association. There are really 2 major challenges that face agriculture in Wyoming moving forward. Keeping a viable industry of family farms and ranches that we all cherish so much. One of those challenges is bringing along that future generations of ag producers. And that involves so much more than what we're doing things now. And we need to do more through ag in the classroom at the lower levels through FFA, 4-H. But it's more than just teaching people about agriculture. It's preparing people to engage in agriculture so that that succession comes forward for our farms and ranches in the state. And that's one place that we see this fitting in, where it can be more targeted toward preparing people to actually do the work that's involved in owning, operating agricultural operations. The other big challenge we face today is that technology is rapidly coming into our industry. Even the part of the industry I represent, which is the livestock industry, which 10 years ago we might have said, well, it's always going to be about the same. It isn't the same anymore from any number of tools that are available to us. And we need to prepare our ranching people to do that. So the value that we see here is, yes, there are research programs at our university, and there are certainly people out there, but to be able to do a very targeted and a very prompt response to specific needs that the ag production community identifies in this state, to be able to go and get some funding for a very targeted piece of research that isn't involved in applying for research grants elsewhere and waiting 2 or 3 years to undertake the research, but doing something that can have an immediate impact on our industry. The same thing with the educational part. We've got some wonderful programs at our community colleges and at the University of Wyoming, but being able to target some things to what do we see today that's needed, and the ability to have a quick response here, I think, is so critical. We've seen how that works. The best example comes to my mind is the Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust, which is able to put dollars on the ground, so to speak, for our natural resources in a very timely and efficient manner through having a committee similar to this that is responsible for meeting and approving the expenditure of those dollars. So this is patterned to a great degree after that. But the components that's missing in that program is the ag component, being able to do some things that are approached from an ag perspective. And that's what is so critical to us. And we believe this is an outstanding way to move forward with this. It assures that there continues to be legislative engagement through the reports that are brought back to you, through the people that serve on the committee. And I think it can be fast and efficient in responding to our needs. And we would urge your support for the funding for this program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jess Johnson, Wyoming Wildlife Federation. I'll be pretty brief because you do have an email in your inbox that has a sign-on letter from 11 different sporting organizations in support of this bill. And to Ms. Aronow's point here, the ability to stand up here with ag and say, this is something we can all agree on. 50% of our state is private land, much more than 50% of that private land is very valuable for the wildlife populations of this state. And we see that as sort of the future of Wyoming and how we keep that going. Those traditional working ranches that aren't being broken up into small places, that are the traditional working ones that do provide habitat both for wildlife and agriculture alike. We see this as a win-win, and we have a 20-year history of incredible projects, millions of dollars put on the ground in Wyoming through WWNRT. So the model that this fund is based after is one that has proven itself over and over and over again to help build the Wyoming that we want to see. From the sporting side, this is a very easy bill for us to get behind, and we're very interested to see this go forward. We see this as a win-win. Now I'm going to take the badge off and say I'm the daughter of ranch managers. I grew up in Montana and Wyoming, and don't hold it against me, but Northern California, because we worked ranches all around the West. I grew up in some of the most incredible places, and many of them don't exist anymore because they're being sold off or broken up. The other side of this is that I am in my 30s and wanting to stay in Wyoming. If I could get onto and start ranching in a place, this is something that could help give me the tools and resources to do that. It is not easy to come into ag if you are not born into it, if you are not born into a family that already owns it. So not only does this keep the traditions and the culture alive, add the resources for youth to be grown up into it and the succession planning, but it gives an idea for those of us that maybe have grown up adjacent, but never had the blessing to actually own the land. This gives us some of those resources, and it will keep young people in this state longer. I can say that from my perspective because it would keep me here. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your attention to this. Please pass this through. This is just a very easy win to get behind for all of us, and I see this as a really cool way to move the future of Wyoming in the way that we want to see it.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Is there anyone else that would like to testify? And I think you already told me, Ms. Childress, no one online for this. All right. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure? Move to pass. Do I have a second? Representative Haroldson.
I'm going to second it just so we can have conversation on it.
Okay. Second by Haroldson.
I'll say as I've looked at this, and the bringer of this bill asked me to sponsor and co-sponsor in the beginning, and the struggle I've had is the conversation of, is this, I understand the nexus behind it, but I struggle with the fact that it seems like a redundancy of model in a way. where we have with the universities, we have a lot of other moving parts and mechanisms here. And I think because we do have so much success with the Wildlife Trust Fund, it's kind of this attitude, let's build one for everything. And I question if that's the right answer. I hear testimony. I definitely, I don't know. I'm just in a torn place because of the fact that, as we look at our long-term forecasts, as we look at a lot of things, it's another $10 million. And the reality is we'll put 10 million in, and next year, well, we need to put another 10 million in because we really don't have any buying power or any ability to move with 10. And so I just, I struggle with what our direction should be. And I know I'm rambling at this point, but kind of just the battle I'm having in my brain on it.
Okay. Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo Representative Haraldson's, just think his comments. Big supporter of ag from an ag family, but I think I do see a lot of redundancy here. And when we're looking at standing up infrastructure in the state that has been neglected over the last years, and we've stood up fire modules and water and infrastructure and trying to get, sales and use tax fixed, another $10 million starts to weigh on you, especially when you're appropriator. So for that, I appreciate you seconding, giving us the opportunity to discuss. That's what I'm weighing with. I just see a lot of redundancy here, so.
Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I very much appreciate the intent that is here. I would support the types of things that you're trying to accomplish. My problem is with the mechanism. I don't like this form of governing. And so I'm going to be a no.
Okay. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really want to see this get to the floor for a conversation from the full body, because I do think that the concept is worth a broader conversation. The reason that I am in favor of this bill is for all the concerns that have been brought in terms of, is it creating redundancies? And the lens that I look at it is getting all of those redundancies in the room together, rowing in the same direction. So the power of coordinating the partners so that there's shared discussion about where the fund should be used, I think is really powerful, right? To get all the players in the room together and to be agreeing on the vision and the direction that our ag industry needs to go. So I really like this model. Again, we've seen it used very successfully in terms of natural resources. And the other reason that I like it is because there are matching funds required. And even though it says 1-to-1 in the bill, we know from past reports shared by Director Budd that it's going to look like 6-to-1, 7-to-1, 8-to-1, right? So that the matching funds will follow this model. And so I do think it's a really good investment of state funds to generate that collaborative work and to generate private matching dollars. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll remind the body that this has already passed through a primary committee. So regardless of our vote, this bill will go to the floor for discussion. So all we're really recommending is an aye or a no based on the financial side of it here. So with that, any other comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and take the roll.
Roll call vote, Senate File 109, engross, do pass. Representative Alaman?
No.
Representative Angelos?
No.
Representative Haraldson?
No.
Representative Pendergraft?
No.
Representative Sherwood?
Aye.
Representative Smith?
No.
Chairman Bear?
No.
Mr. Chairman, 1 aye, 6 no. Vote do pass fail.
Okay, so that'll go on to the floor. And, the parent committee should have determined somebody to manage that. And we have one more on our docket, but I'm going to go ahead and wait until our next meeting to take care of that. Representative, I know you're here to to deal with that, but we need to get prepared for JCC presentation and meeting. So we're gonna kind of circle the wagons and work on that here for a little bit. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting right now.